Good
Welcome to the
morning.
party.
It is Wednesday, September 18th. We are talking about plants and gardens in our own plant and garden setup.
Oh boy.
Welcome back into GMQC at 11, and it is time now for Plants and Garden Time with Craig Hignight. And yeah, we brought Andrew out here today because, yeah, you see, all these plants are talking to you. You know, need a little water, right?
No, that one I had to dump the water off of.
Oh.
Whenever you water, make sure that you drain the excess that comes out the bottom.
So we've brought a feature today. Okay, so we'll have something. Well, let's get to our questions. All right, so we have here, I have low light indoors. So I have 40-watt grow lights over my house plants. Do I need to turn them off at all?
Well, I would run those lights about 12 to 16 hours a day, save a little bit of electricity. It's best to use those lights as the sun is going down. Just extend the natural day length for a while.
That's a good question. Another one we have coming in. When is the best time to transplant a hibiscus?
Hibiscus, this late in the season, I'd wait until next spring. Wait until you see that new growth coming up in the spring. Don't get anxious. We all know that hibiscus are one of the last plants to show signs of life in the spring. So just give it some time. As soon as you see life, move it with that nice big clump of soil. You should be just fine.
All right, so this one is saying, my daughter has a question about an indoor plant of hers. It's called a neon pathos, which has gotten brown spots on the leaves, and she has tried many methods to resolve the issue and has failed. Do you have any suggestions for her?
Yes, cut back on the water. The brown spots on the neon pathos, which is a bright canary yellow when it gets enough light, tells me that the plant is probably staying just a little bit too wet. Make sure that you let it dry down just a little bit better between waterings. Oh yeah, and dump that excess when you do water.
This one is from Dean. It says the leaves are falling off my apple trees and they were sprayed early this year. What could be going on with that?
Fall, it's that time of the year. I've noticed leaves coming down all over town. And if your tree got a little bit of leaf disease later in the season, it's not uncommon for them to shed leaves a little early, but at this point, I don't think I'd worry about that.
All right, this one says, when can you plant a potted mum in the ground?
As soon as possible. The longer they're in the ground, the more roots they're going to be able to get out to get through the winter. So if you wait until they're completely bloomed out and we get clear out to the end of the season, you put it in the ground, then we keep our fingers crossed, hoping that Mother Nature will bring it through the winter.
All right, this is a beefy one from Nancy. We have a hydrangea that is 2 years old. This spring, the first issue was deer, so we solved that issue, and then they had brown spots on the leaves. All the leaves with brown spots have now dropped off, and we now have a very small set of green leaves that are starting to grow. Is this plant worth saving, or is it time to start over?
Oh, no. Just give it time. This plant has just been through the stress of summer. We've had a lot of leaf spot diseases. Next year, you might want to spray with some fungicide earlier in the season, protect that first flush of leaves. As far as the second flush of leaves, we're going to hope that they get mature enough to make it through the winter, but this plant It's young. It's going to take 3 years at least to get this plant well established, so just give it some time. Oh, and next spring, make sure you give it some root stimulator.
This is one that says, can I dig black-eyed Susan and move them?
Go ahead, move them with a nice clump of soil. Get them out of the ground, back in the ground, get them mulched. Take care of your watering for the rest of this season, but they should come through the winter just fine.
And this one is from Nick. Can I plant a tree this fall and keep watering, or is spring a better time for that?
Oh no, now's the time you're going to find the sales in the nursery. So go out and get your trees, get them in the ground, plant them properly, make sure you do watch the watering. It can be pretty erratic through the next couple of months before the ground freezes. Of course, the root stimulator, the mulch to keep weeds and grass away from them, but now is a perfect time to go ahead and put trees in the ground.
All right, we'll continue to send your questions in to our WQAD Facebook page, and we're going to try to get them answered on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Oh, welcome back into Good Morning Quad Cities at 11 here. It is Wednesday, and that means it's time to take your plant and garden questions with our plant and garden expert, Craig Hignight. He is back with us. We are streaming those questions right now and taking them on our Facebook Live. We left off with Lori, who's asking about a flowering crab tree that blooms beautifully in the spring, but all the leaves fall off throughout the summer, so the tree is bare most of the summer season. Is there anything she can do, or is there any fault to prevent it from happening next year?
Oh, definitely. As soon as we get past petal drop, that's when all the petals have come off the flowers. You go in and you start spraying with an all-purpose fruit tree spray and maybe another fungicide, trading off about every second or third spray. The whole idea is to get some protection on those leaves so that the disease doesn't get to them, and the tree will have many more leaves when you get to this time of the year.
All right, this one says, what do you use to pot an aloe plant in? How often do you water it?
Well, first you need a pot with a good drainage hole. Secondly, you need a well-draining cactus soil. And thirdly, you run them a little drier than you would a regular house plant. When you think it's ready for water, just give it one more day. It should come through fine. Of course, always drain that excess that comes out the bottom and give it as much light as you possibly can in the house.
This one is from Paula. Since crabgrass is an annual, when is the best time to use a preventative? Is that in the spring or in the fall?
Oh, in the spring. in the spring. That's the whole idea behind step 1 in the fertilizing program. If you're not a fertilizing person on your lawn, look for a product like Treflan. That is a pre-emergent herbicide, just like in step 1, and you put it down about the time that the forsythia comes into bloom. Should cut your crabgrass by an amazing amount.
All right, we're still receiving your questions in, and if you have any more, continue to send them. This one says, my cantaloupe and squash plants all have bad powdery mildew. Is there any way to save them?
Well, there again, it's one of those things that I know a lot of people don't like using fungicide, but fortunately these plants are one that we aren't eating the outside of the plant, so get on top of it. Probably a little late this year, but next year you want to be in there, maybe starting out with something like a copper fungicide. It's not a fungicide per se, it's just a copper mineral that you can spray on the plant to slow the fungus down, and start when the plants are fairly young. I would start probably in early June.
Karen is wondering how to protect a mum over the winter.
Mums really don't need any protection. They are, if they're going to make it, they're going to make it. You might put a little mulch over them. One thing you don't want to do is cut them back. You let the mum stand through the fall. It kind of protects itself.
This one says, do my asparagus and strawberries that are in raised beds need watering before winter?
Oh, for sure. You've got to go ahead and stay on top of your watering, especially in a raised bed, because their roots are going out into the rest of the yard. But it's like any other garden. You have to stay on top of your watering. If you get an inch to an inch and a half of dry soil on the top, a good thorough watering, and we actually do this clear up until the 1st of December.
This one is from Sherry. I have spiders and spider webs on my, oh boy, it's that word,
arborvitae.
Arborvitae, thank you.
Okay.
Always throws me off. Bushes, how can we get rid of those?
Okay, this time of the year, those are garden spiders. Any general insecticide will go ahead and knock them down. They are not feeding on the plant. They're feeding on the other insects that might be feeding on the plant. And since you're not going to haul this plant in the house, I don't think it's something that you really have to worry about.
All right, we're still looking for more questions. And talk about some of the things that you're telling people this time of year, I guess, other than water, right?
Water, and don't prune, don't prune, don't prune. We're into that time of the year where it's getting fairly late. And it's just like that hydrangea question where the hydrangea itself is putting out new growth. If you prune a plant, it is going to try and grow. It reinvigorates a plant every time you prune it back. So I would cut back on the pruning now. Hopefully we won't get a lot of late growth that doesn't make it through the winter, and we can start our pruning again after Thanksgiving, assuming that we have a normal fall that cools off pretty quickly at Thanksgiving.
All right, well, Craig, thank you
Thank
as
you.
always for coming in, and yes, we'll see you next week. And remember, you can always go to our WQAD Facebook page and every Wednesday to send in your questions during this time. Well, let's take a live look from our Bridgepoint camera now in downtown Moline as GMQC at 11. We'll be right back. And here's what's coming up on GMA3. Hey, guys.
Hey there, coming up on GMA3.